Hello.
Hello.
We are back with episode 47 of Far From Normal. My name is Shivani.
And I'm Miranda.
And
this
is it.
This is Far From Normal, yeah.
So to our audience, we have been posting a lot about food insecurity in the past week or so. So as you might have noticed, feedingamerica.org estimated that there was about 35 million people that experienced food insecurity in the United States in 2019. And as expected, this number increased about 23% in 2020. And there were many children affected by this, and lots of school lunches that were no longer available, and food stamps that could not keep up with this food insecurity demand. So with that said, we invited Mr. Raj and Mr. Anna Asava to discuss their organization about called HungerMitao, or not even, well, I think they will clarify this, but it's not an organization. But would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Ladies first.
Sure. I'm Anna Asava, co-founder of HungerMitao. And I would like to say that has become our introduction in itself.
That's right. I'm Raj Asava. And as an introduction, just a little bit about ourselves, both Anna. Anna actually is a short form. Her real name is Aradhana, but she goes as Anna in the corporate world, and kind of Anna stuck with her. So I came to the United States from India in 1974. I started my career as a dishwasher. My lovely wife joined me in 1982 when we both got married. And Anna retired. We both had a successful corporate career. And Anna retired from the corporate world as an executive at EDS, which was at that time bought by HP, Hewlett Packard.
Okay.
And that was in 2009. And in 2010, I retired as the Chief Strategy Officer for Pro Systems, which was acquired by Dell Computers. So basically at that time in 2010, Anna fully retired and I joining the retirement ranks. We both kind of took an inventory of our lives and what we wanted to do out of our lives. We both felt that time is the most precious thing any human can have. And we had a successful corporate career. We have two boys who at that time in 2010 were fully grown and off our payroll. What I mean by that is they were graduated. They graduated from UT Austin, both of them, and they both had successful careers. So Anna and I said, okay, so what do we want to do with the rest of our time on this lovely planet that we are placed on? And we both felt that we wanted to spend more time with our aging parents and family members across the world. We both love traveling. We wanted to go see and experience the world. And we both believe that we have a life mantra, which we call it, a human life is best lived in 3 stages. And that is learning, earning, and returning. Because frankly speaking, nothing is going back with us, right? None of the material things is going back with us. Mm-hmm. So whatever we are today, it is because of the community that shaped us, right? And we owe it back to the community, back to the society, giving back in form of resources that we have accumulated over the years, experiences that we have accumulated over the years, networks that we have accumulated over the years. So we both felt that we were in the returning phase of our lives. So we got engaged in causes. And at that time in 2009, 2010, we both felt, and it was just maybe a little bit of a stereotype, that the need was always there in emerging countries, in third world countries.
At least the visible need.
Exactly. Right, Anna? So Anna, actually, would you tell about your
So we engaged in several nonprofits, most of whom did work in India. Right. So, I became president of a nonprofit in Dallas, and we raised a whole bunch of money, and money was sent to India. So, that was the only need that we were aware of.
Yeah. Well, we actually, like Anna was the president of their chapter. We raised millions of dollars. I started an Austin chapter, and we were raising funds and sending it to money for education-focused charity. And we were feeling good about giving back to the society. But interesting thing happened. About 5 years ago, I was having lunch with our Plano mayor. So Plano is the suburb that we live in. So I was having lunch with him. And during the lunch, he asked me, he says, Raj, would you support my backpack program? Now we all live in United States, capital of marketing, right? I mean, I thought it was some kind of a marketing gig, backpack with logos and given to the bright student, something like that. But he corrected me. He said, no, I'm talking about backpack filled with enough food for a child to last for the weekend. I immediately looked at him and said, oh, you mean in the rough neighborhoods, the rundown neighborhoods, etc., inner cities? He said, no. I'm talking about schools where your children went, where my children are going. And Anna, could you tell about your experience about?
It was mind-boggling because I used to tell Raj about all these lavish cars that were in the parking lot when I went to drop the kids off to school, and I'd come back and say, what's happening here? I mean, I know this is an affluent city, but I mean, these cars are better than the cars in the parking lot of the company I work for. So something's
these are
weird here.
teenagers, right? And actually around Plano, you don't see hunger, you don't see poverty, you don't see homelessness. So when the Plano mayor said that this is for children at Plano schools, and then he went on to say things like 1 in 4 school-going children doesn't know where their next meal is coming from in Plano, which is, again, as Anna mentioned, a very affluent community, affluent city. So I came home and I told Anna what the mayor said. And first thing she said was, Raj, you're getting old. You didn't hear it correctly. This cannot be true. So when I used to work, my mentor, one I always looked up to is Ross Perot. And Ross Perot he had lots of famous sayings. One of his famous saying was, if you ever want to find the truth, bring all the liars in one room. So what we decided, Anna is a wonderful cook. We are vegetarian. And so we decided to invite the Plano mayor to our home for dinner. I was on the board of a Indian physicians organization. And I said, if in fact hunger is an issue, this will translate into health issues. So you need to hear this. So I invited the board to our home. We invited the executives of the food bank to our home. And they all came. And they gave, in our living room, they gave a presentation about the hunger stats right in our area in North Texas. First slide, we were shocked. But PowerPoint slide has an interesting effect. By the second, third slide, frankly speaking, those just becomes numbers. Our mind zooms away, right? Doesn't have that emotional connections anymore. The shock factor is gone. We accept it now. But Colleen, who presented that from Food Bank, she did one fantastic thing. At the end of the presentation, she actually pulled out a backpack and passed it around. And when you look inside the backpack, you see the small juice boxes, you see the small milk boxes, you see the small peel away snack items, sunflower seed packets. There was not a single dry eye in the room at that time. And everybody wrote their checks that night, but that night, Anna and I could sleep. Because something awakened in us that, hold on, issues are right here in our own front yard, in our own backyard, in this country that allowed me to go from being a dishwasher to a chief strategy officer. There are challenges here. And I owe it to this country to give back, to at least do something.
And this wasn't a very luxurious challenge of, we don't have the arts or, things like that. Hunger,
basic necessity,
which was so invisible, but there was so much hunger.
Right. So, but coming from the corporate world, I mean, Anna has, and I'm hogging all the time here, and I'm quoting Anna. I should let Anna speak. Anna, your perspective of how our corporate world prepared us for.
Yeah. So, I mean, long corporate careers, right? And we thoroughly enjoyed our corporate careers. And it seemed like we were at a life point where all those learnings from the corporate world could be brought in to do something that was so gratifying and something so different. So that's how, we kind of looked at the problem. We spoke with the leaders of the food bank, and we, started getting engaged a little by little to really get to is this problem real? And is the food bank doing an effective enough job? And I mean, if the problem is so big, the solution has to be huge. Is the food bank the right organization? So we did some due diligence there.
So due diligence was very important to us, especially as an immigrant community, we know the value of a hard-earned dollar. So, if we were, besides us giving any funds, if we were going to ask anybody else to give funds to the food bank, we wanted to make sure that is, like Anna mentioned, we do our due diligence to realize that this is the right organization and they are running efficiently. So Anna joined the philanthropy board of the food bank, of North Texas Food Bank, to learn more about their inner workings, to see how efficient and effective they are. And once after a year or so, she was convinced that, okay, this is the right way to do it. And we wanted to also make sure that we put our egos aside, because a human instinct, especially during retirement, is that start something on your own.
Legacy building.
Legacy building, leave my name behind. I said, no, let's put all that stuff aside. Let's work on, solving the problem on hand, and that this being a necessity of a basic necessity problem. So after Anna was convinced that this is the right organization to throw our support behind, we spoke with the CEO of the food bank and said, we wanted to make a large donation, which we did. And then we said, besides the donation, we just did not want to be one and done. We wanted to figure out, and Anna and I we communicate a lot. So we felt, what? First of all, we questioned, why is there more Indian community members engaged in this fight against hunger?
Yes, so let me elaborate on that. So, obviously, as part of our engagement with the food bank, we also started volunteering regularly and more regularly. And we would always make a comment of, there's not too many people here volunteering who look like us, right? And we wondered why that was. And we led a very social life in Plano. And we reflected and we said, never in our parties or gatherings has hunger come up as an issue. Even about talking about, hey, kids go to school and there's so much hunger. Never has hunger been a topic of conversation. And could that be because it's invisible?
Well, I think one is it's invisible. Second is the fact that just like how we were not aware of the hunger issue, very likely our friend circle, other Indian community members were not aware of it. For me, I was fortunate that the Plano mayor actually raised that issue and raised that awareness, right? Or else I was ignorant about that problem. So we basically proposed to the CEO of the food bank that besides our 6-figure donation that we made at that time, we would like to also, launch this thing called HungerMitao. HungerMitao is 2 words, hunger is the English word, of course. Mitao means wipe out in Hindi, which is the Indian national language. So we just brought that two together and we proposed to the CEO that we would like to raise awareness within the Indian community about the hunger issue. And awareness is the first step before engagement, right? So she said, this is great. We have always been looking for ways to engage the community at the food bank. But our thought process was more like, okay, let's be in the middle of the community. So they moved their distribution center, which was far away from the central part of the city. They moved it right in the heart of the city. So more community members can come out and volunteer and etc. But this was a very unique movement that they were intrigued and they said, we'll support you.
Yeah, outreach of this kind had never been done.
So Anna and I got to work, my background being strategy, Anna being very process driven. We developed our strategic plan. We put our guiding principle. And part of our guiding principle was we are not going to create yet another organization, right? We don't want another 501c3 floating out there. The need is hunger. An organization that is doing a great job is food bank. Community that needs to get engaged is what we need to connect them with. So we wanted to just evangelize this thing. So we, as part of our strategy, we did a lot of anticipatory thinking. So basically, we kind of played the devil's advocate where we say, okay, once we raise awareness, then the community will say, okay, so what can I do, right? So let's be prepared rather than, well, then we are lost, then we lose them. That we got them and yet we lose them. So we basically identified 4 impact pillars under HungerMitao. And those 4 impact pillars are, number 1, awareness. We tell the community, at the minimum, be aware that there's a hunger issue where you live. There's a hunger issue where your children are going to school. Don't be ignorant about that. We don't want to do anything about it. That's okay. We understand everybody's life is different. Everybody has other pressures. So we totally understand that. But be aware that 1 in 6 at that time, right?
Yeah.
1 in 6 North Texans did not know where the next meal is coming from. 1 in 4 school-going children doesn't know where the next meal is coming from. So we wanted to.
And this was like the bulk of what we felt we needed to do.
Yeah.
Because in our minds, honestly, in both of our minds, we equated homelessness with hunger.
Yeah.
And we found that in the US, that is not accurate at all.
Yeah.
Most of the people who need food assistance have a permanent address.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a learning for us. So we wanted to make sure that, people knew that when we made them aware.
That's right. That's right. And, face of hunger was different here than face of hunger in India. In India, the moment you land from the airport, you'll see hunger right there on the sidewalks, right? And hunger truly was connected with homelessness, with poverty, right? So poverty is here also. But as I said, as Anna said, that people, 90+% of people who actually come to the food bank and the pantries to get food assistance actually have a permanent roof over their head. So we had to educate the community that people are making decisions between mortgage, medicine, and food. And typically food is what that suffers. You still need your medicine, you still need to pay your rent or else you'll be kicked out, right? So they typically end up what? Maximizing it. So non-nutritious food, whatever can fill their belly, they are going out and getting those food, which is basically creating issues down the road.
Yeah.
Anna's mother used to, whenever we used to visit India, when we told her about the hunger issue here in America, she said, it can be right. She said, I see the most obese people in America. How could that be, how could they be hungry? And therein, Anna explains to them about.
Yeah, it's not always having enough to eat. It's actually more often than not a symptom of not having the right food to eat.
Right.
Yeah, the nutritious also, they have all focused on filling their bellies, etc.
So awareness.
Awareness was our number 1 impact pillar. And Anna and I got to work on that right away. So I'll get to that in a second. Let me quickly give you the other 3 pillars. The other 3 pillars were volunteering. Food bank, the North Texas Food Bank can enable 3 meals for $1, right? Feeding America at the national level can enable 10 meals for $1, right? And that is because of 2 reasons. One is majority of the food that they get is donated. So there is no cost for that, majority. And secondly, they have hundreds of thousands of volunteers who give up 2 hours over the weekend or a weeknight or a weekday, come as corporations, right, to sort out the donated food. Now, if they had to pay even minimum wages to those people who are sorting the food, it would flip. Instead of 3 meals to $1, it'll be $3 to a meal, or maybe even more. So we wanted to encourage more of the community members to come out and volunteer, especially after Anna mentioned, when we volunteered, we didn't see that many community members, Indian community members out there volunteering. Few, and those few in many cases came through the corporations, not as a community. So volunteering is something we wanted to encourage. The third thing was food drive. As I mentioned earlier, that food, they get most of the food is donated food at the food bank. So India, we have lots of festivals. We wanted to change the paradigm that, okay, we don't need more sweets. We don't need more wine on our celebrations. Instead, why not make a a can of beans or a bag of rice or whatever non-perishable food that can be donated to the food bank. Let's get into that habit of doing food drives and donating to the food bank. And the fourth one, of course, the most important of all is money, because the food bank, still needs funds to keep the lights on, to keep their trucks moving, between collecting food to dropping it off at every zip code, so that folks who are in need of food can come out and get it.
And the food banks also need to buy food, because
That's right.
as we need to also clarify that food banks used to, long time ago, just hand out cans of food. But lately, there's been such a focus on distributing nutritious food, that almost half of the food distributed by the food banks is produce and protein, right? Because we want to make sure there people who need food are eating nutritious food. So when you depend on food that is donated, you don't always get the full spectrum of a plate that is nutritious. So there are times when the food bank has to go out and purchase food. So the money is for all of that, and money is crucial.
Yep, exactly. So, in a way, we wanted to take the crutches away from those who still wanted to be on the sideline, right? So if somebody, after being aware of the hunger issue, says, that's great, but I don't have any money right now. I am struggling, or I am saving for my children's school, etc. We tell them, we totally understand that. I'll go back to the life mantra: learning, earning, and returning. So somebody may be a student, they may be in the learning stage, but they still want to do something good. Well, yeah, don't worry about money, but how about giving 2 hours of your time once a month, right? And that can help the food bank, right? For those who are earning and they are still in the saving mode for their children, etc., we totally support that. But how about that extra can of bean that is there in your pantry? How about giving a couple of those once in a while, before it expires, to the food bank? Right? So there are many ways to engage. Anna and I, in the first year, we launched this HungerMitao movement in 2017. And at that time, we also did something interesting, which is we wanted to look, okay, the audience we are going after is the Indian community, which is where we come from. And we chose to go and focus on that, because you need to put a scope around something, somewhere, as a community. Initially, we thought the Asian community, right? South Asian community. But I was on the board of a South Asian Chamber of Commerce organization. And I'll be candid with you. Every country comes with their own religion, culture, holidays, language. It was hard to get anything done. It is hard as it is within India, because India, between north, south, east, west, we have different culture, different holidays, different religion, different dialects. Even there is hard, but at least people associate with India as their country. So we said, and also we had our biggest network of friends circle, influencers, right, within the Indian community. So we said, let's start with that. And Anna, you want to talk about the replication of the model?
So from the beginning, the thought we put around this was, that we are starting in North Texas. We did want to scale it to other cities. And we also wanted this to be a model that could be replicated, if it became successful, to other communities, not just the Indian American community, because this was a model we saw promise in. And that was the intention with which we started. And that was also something we paid attention to as we created templates. We made sure that they could be repurposed and reused. And so initially, when I said all of our corporate training came to service, that's what I meant. Everything that we learned at work seemed to play a role in this new avatar of ours.
Yeah, exactly. So we templatized everything, and we made sure that it is easily replicable. So we now, just to give a quick update, HungerMitao now is a national movement across the country, across United States. And we are working with 5 food banks and with Feeding America at this time. But other additional food banks are now wanting to also implement HungerMitao. to engage the community in those areas. The 5 food banks we are currently working with are North Texas, Houston, Atlanta, New York City, and Seattle. And then we are working with the mothership, which is the Feeding America, which overlooks the 200 food banks across the country and every zip code across the country. So we're working closely with them. And I was just kind of going back to one other item, that how did this thing got started, right? I mean, so the momentum, if I may. Basically, Anna and I, from 2017, once it was launched, we basically went and did awareness sessions, right? First of all, we ourselves got onboarded with the food bank to get all the latest about the hunger issue, etc. And after getting all that knowledge, then whether it was 2 people at Starbucks or 20,000 people at Cotton Bowl Stadium, we went and spoke. When whoever will give us, we had 1-minute pitch about hunger issue. We had 5-minute pitch about hunger issue. We had a 1-hour presentation, Q&A. We had a workshop on hunger issue. So we made ourselves available to the community. We basically told the food bank that we'll give 3 years of our time. Frankly, it's already up to 5 years now. But we just wanted to make sure that we are truly immersed in it. And by doing so, in the very first year, we must have done way over 100 awareness sessions. I mean, even at people's home, they were having a religious festival, and they said, would you come and speak for 10 minutes at the end of, they have this thing called Aarti, would you do that? We said, we'll be happy to do that, right? A friend of ours having his 50th birthday, he actually surprised us. He says, we will support, they're a big supporter of HungerMitao and the food bank. And on his 50th birthday, between all of his friends, he had already said in his birthday message, his wife had that, no gifts, any donation, make it to the North Texas Food Bank. And in his remarks, he said, I did not realize that I was actually a recipient of subsidized food, which was made possible by generous donors. Because when we came to America, right, and when we went to school, I mean, the way we were, given food and all that in the cafeteria, etc., it was subsidized.
Yeah, he said he didn't realize it then.
Yeah.
He said, I never felt poor.
Yeah.
But now when I think back, that is what had happened. My parents had signed up for this privilege at school, and I was a recipient.
Right.
So it struck deep.
Right. And that's one thing that we like about working with Food Bank, is that all their programs want to ensure that the dignity of the individuals is not taken up. Right. For example, the backpack program. The backpack program is designed such that the backpacks are discreetly put in the locker. They are also not backpack that says this is for a hungry child or whatever, or a color code, right? They blend right in with other kids' backpack. And we like that the whole dignity part of it. Anyways, we kind of gave you
a long intro.
But I warned you that we will give you a good update also in our intro. But if you have any other specific questions, we would love to answer them.
I'll let you start.
No, I was just blown away and very much inspired by that whole story. I also didn't in my head before I researched about hunger, I associated homelessness with hunger, and that just kind of made things a lot more clear to me, because I guess I was exposed to India, so then you associate hunger with homelessness. I guess one of my questions would be what was your what do you think is your biggest struggle, or what was your biggest struggle starting this organization, putting it together?
I don't think there was any struggle at all. We believed there was no struggle because, number one, we were not looking to create an organization. We found a cause that needed attention. We found an organization that was doing phenomenal work. So our work was easy. We were just evangelizing the work of this organization towards this cause that all of us, especially people from India, everybody is connected with helping hungry people get food. It's part of our traditions. It's part of our everyday life. we do not start to eat. I mean, many households still follow this. As some families here set a plate aside for a person, an extra person at the table. In India, before people eat, they put some food aside that is given to somebody who comes asking for food, or even to animals. So, focus on the hungry is such a big part of our upbringing.
Yeah.
And here we were telling people that, hey, we are associated deeply with India. And yes, we, one way or the other, we are all contributing towards causes in India, but let's not be blind to this need here.
Right. I would like to say that I have a different view, which is what I think you want in this podcast, right?
Yeah.
My view is that there were struggles. Our struggles were different, though. As Anna said, the ecosystem was in place, right? And we were 100% committed. I mean, we are working harder now than we worked during our corporate days. Our typical days is 14 to 16 hours, especially now that it's the national movement, right? And we are happy with that, no issues with that. So that way, that there is no struggle from that angle. The struggle is when we started this, and when we did our awareness session, and people were exhausted. They exhausted their questions because they got the answers from us. Yet, for the longest time, they did not engage because they were wondering, what is our agenda here? Okay, what is Raj and Anna's agenda? What are they trying to get out of this? And for that reason, for the longest time, people were on the sideline. But eventually, when they realized that we are a very transparent movement, in fact, the word we use to define HungerMitao is that we are a movement. We are not an organization. We are not an association. And we don't touch any money. We don't touch any can of food. We don't take any minute of volunteering. We are willing to do all the heavy lifting. No issues with that. If somebody wants to join, so we do have a steering council now that we have created, because lots of people from the community have stepped up now, 4 years into this movement, and say, you know what, they have done their due diligence on us, and they realize that there are no titles, there are no positions. We're just trying to raise a community to step up and give where you live, which is our tagline. Right? We don't tell people that stop supporting other causes. We tell them, please continue to do what you are doing. We do that, right? But we tell them that as passionate as you are for giving to your motherland, you have to also be aware of the issues and do things in your adopted land, which, by the way, is your children's motherland. Because they're going to grow up here. This is, and how are we going to help them integrate into the fabric of this great country unless they are seen not just as spelling bee champions, not just as educated children, not just as Indians are CEOs of Google and Microsoft and Adobe, etc. Right? They should also be seen that, oh, this is an empathetic and passionate community that actually gets rolling up their sleeves and giving back and volunteering, etc.
So this Raj, glad you mentioned that, because we wove this into our mission.
Yeah.
Right? We have a two-pronged mission. One is there should be no hunger where we live, because we are considered civilized people. We need to do our part in ensuring that nobody goes hungry. I don't think we will ever be able to eradicate hunger because there are larger forces at play, but we can, as a community, make sure nobody goes hungry. The second part is, as an immigrant community, we don't want to always be considered foreigners. And we will be considered foreigners if we don't engage in local issues, right? And so those were the two things that were very important to us as we communicated our charter, our strategic plan, and said, okay, these are two things we want to measure ourselves on.
Yep.
I had a question while you guys were discussing that came to mind. You spoke about how hard it was to engage people at first. like before you get to the process of, making people aware, how do you get people to like talk to you about it or to click on the website or, like what are some of the first things you say to get people involved?
That's a very good question. So we, both of us, again, from being technology world, that's what we grew up in, and corporate world, we feel the social media has played a very, very big role in helping us effectively, articulate and push out our messages.
Mm.
We are using Facebook group, Facebook pages. We're not that big into Instagram yet. We have a handle there. We just need some young people to kind of guide us on, how the Instagram groups, etc., work. But we have our own radio show.
Oh, cool.
So every week we do a HungerMitao segment. So there is a South Asian radio show which reaches the ears of literally hundreds and tens of thousands of Indian community in the North Texas area. So the owner of that, when they heard the HungerMitao story, they say, "Hey, I'll give you 10 minutes, on a given," and they were moving it around. So for the last 2 years, we have been doing shows. That show has been so successful that now they reached out to us and say, "We'll give you 30 minutes segment." And Anna and I looked at it and said, "How much can we talk about hunger?" So we are actually bringing in some Bollywood songs related to giving and passion.
And also some food bank leaders. And so we are now going deep, right? So we pick out a program of the food bank and we invite somebody from the food bank to come talk to us about it. Kids backpack program, for instance, right? So we are getting our listeners more information, deeper information about how the food bank is tackling hunger.
Right. And then, using website, our website is www.hungermitao.org. And that's a national level website. And then at every food bank where we have HungerMitao up and running, we basically tell them that we are part of you. We're not separate because we're not, again, another 501c3. So the food bank gives us a page or a microsite on their food bank website.
On their platform. Yeah.
On their platform. So like ntfb.org is North Texas Food Bank's platform. And if you do ntfb.org/HungerMitao, suddenly you will get to our microsite. And then we use that to get the message out. So on our radio show, we put that website. So people click on it, people go there. And whenever you're running any kind of campaign, we promote the heck out of it through the Facebook groups and to the radio show, etc. Your podcast will do wonders for us to, again, get across many, many more people across the country. So we've been, so we're living in an interesting time because the social media, which has also been used by the bad actors, right, to make the world more volatile, right? I think, yeah, it is unfortunate, but that is the reality of the thing. We are looking at the other side, said, okay, for a good cause, the basic necessity type of a cause, how can we use the social media to raise awareness, and then when people are ready, to engage them.
And Miranda, the question you asked, how did we engage people initially? There was one question to ask as far as we were concerned. Do you know there is hunger around you?
Gotcha.
And, that would get them intrigued. And, then we knew the statistics, we knew the work that was being done. So and the question is just so profound that it gets people thinking.
See, after a while, interesting thing happened, whenever we used to, because we both are very social, we go to, pre-COVID, not a weekend went by where we were not out at some party with some friends, etc. But I know the conversation Anna and I will have in our car before entering the party said, no more HungerMitao talk. Okay, this is a social gathering. We're going to have fun. But the moment we walk in there, people look and say, "Oh, HungerMitao." They say, "Oh, I heard your radio show," or "Tell me more. I meant to get engaged." So next thing you know, the entire evening we are talking about HungerMitao. Yeah. So the word really started
Which was
to,
encouraging,
which was very
right?
encouraging.
Because it wasn't us talking to people, it was people pulling that information out.
Yeah.
That was good to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I attended one of your Youth Against Hunger sessions, and I thought that was really, really interesting. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, sure. So Youth Against Hunger, our goal again is as we are, raising awareness. One thing we did was through volunteering, a lot of youngsters came out and volunteered. A lot of families came out and volunteered. Interesting thing we also learned was during the volunteer time, again, these are all pre-COVID times, when families used to come out and volunteer together, from uh, young teenagers to college going students to mom and dad, sometimes visiting grandparents also coming out and volunteering together. They actually reached out to us and they said that the conversation around our dining table has changed. Because now these kids, are no longer consumed about wanting more video games or focusing their time on video games. Because when they spend 2 hours with their family, filling the backpack program or the senior boxes, that they were asking questions, and then they learned that other kids their age did not know where the next meal is coming from. I mean, it is not mom and dad telling them, because mom and dad telling, first thing they'll do is ignore, right? But they
Yeah.
are actually seeing it. Right. So now, I mean, we don't need to tell them to finish their food. They're finishing their food.
And more kids were foregoing birthday parties
Yeah,
to, deflect their gifts into the food bank.
exactly. So they see that type of transformation taking place. So Youth Against Hunger was a part of that, where we felt that we need to create more opportunities for youth. And my father used to always say, an empty mind is a home of devil. So during summer vacations, for example, parents are looking for how to keep their kids engaged, etc. So last couple of years around summertime, just coming up to the HungerMitao month, which we have, which is in the month of August, we thought, it would be great if the kids wanted to do a food drive. And then kids, I mean, again, I'm saying kids, but I'm talking about 13 to 19-year-old. We said, okay, do you have ideas through which you can do fundraising or do food drives to benefit the food bank? And there are several ideas. So we said, okay, we'll provide you a platform to come and, present your idea. And they came out, they presented their idea. Then we said, okay, we'll attach one of our steering council member as a mentor with you to help you shape your idea and implement it. And I tell you, I mean, simple things like chalk art on sidewalk in a summer day.
Because of COVID, people were only walking around their neighborhood.
Right.
And this one youngster said, I want the sidewalk to look pretty because people are looking at their sidewalk more.
Right.
So she started doing.
She started doing that. She said, I'll just charge you $10. And she and a couple of her friends. But one of the homeowners got so touched by that gesture, what the kid was doing, and the fact that the money was, and the kid did not collect the money. They set up a page within the North Texas Food Bank site, right? And they basically said, you go and donate directly. I will draw the art and you donate directly to the food bank. They donated $1,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this youngster, she raised $3,000 some dollars, and we thought, okay, no, this idea at best may get $100, $200, because I'm doing mathematical calculation, one drive at $10, physically how many can she do? I forgot the human part, the how that touched the human emotions, and how people who were not aware or who were on the sideline came out and donated. So that was one. There was one other child. You want to talk a little bit about the concert?
So there was one high school student who decided that, what was the movie that came out?
Queen's Rhapsody,
Yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody. And the AIDS concert that they had done, I believe.
So this student said, oh, we can invite all the high school bands to come do a concert. We can sell tickets. I mean, it was amazing. They formed a team. They created a whole event, and they raised a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, they raised almost 50,000 meals.
50,000 meals.
Right, and they are high school bands compete with each other, and it was really great to see their strategy, their project planning, and their team building in the process. With all the thing. So this was all youth driven. So Youth Against Hunger, we got inspired to figure out, how we can provide a platform for youth to unleash their creativity to help the food bank in the fight against hunger.
And it's an important program because one generation will not solve this issue.
Yeah.
We need youngsters to at least be aware of the hunger issue, to start thinking about how they can impact it.
Yeah.
And, become the next leaders.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Do you want me to talk a little bit about the COVID impact on?
I was actually just about to ask that. I was going to say, like, how has the movement changed in the past 5 years, especially during COVID? Was
Yeah.
my next question. So go ahead.
No, I think Miranda, that's a very good thing, because one thing interesting that happened was the food banks and Feeding America were making great progress in this fight against hunger. Because typically hunger is a result of two things, unemployment, poverty, homelessness, and if you remember pre-COVID, I mean, our unemployment rate was around 3.7%, right? Poverty, as calculated, was 10% or below across the country. So we were making great progress in addressing that. However, when COVID started last year in March, I mean, all the progress, has been literally been, wiped out, and more people. There were, like, at one point 40 to 50% of people standing in food line, waiting for food by the food bank, were first timers. 40 to 50% people. Right. So many people, as you know, that who are customer facing retail industry, were shut down. Restaurants, retail stores, retail outlets, etc. Travel.
Right. And travel and all the associated, the Uber drivers, the dry cleaners. I mean, there's a whole side industry that supports people who are going to work.
Sports came to an end, right? So the sports arena are not working. So, all the, the hot dog stands, and you can imagine, everybody knows this, so let me not harp on that part. But clearly 55% more demand of food across the nation, 55%. Some food banks they basically reached out to Feeding America, said that we are running out of money, running out of food, and the line is not, coming to an end. Right. So clearly, two good things happened out of the pandemic. One, generosity of people really showed up. People stepped up and basically gave from their heart. I mean, from working class people to folks like McKinsey, Scott McKinsey, Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, who gave millions of dollars to Feeding America and the food banks. So it was very gratifying to see that, the good side of people stepping up for people. The other interesting thing that happened was, as you remember in our earlier part of discussion, we talked about how hunger is hidden here. Hunger in America is no longer hidden. Right. So what COVID did was
COVID took the covers off.
It took the covers off. I mean, you basically look at it. Every national, in the entire 2020, I remember whenever I'm watching news, right, there was some part of the news talking about and showing the long lines around the blocks of people waiting to collect some food. Right. Now we see long lines of people waiting to collect vaccine. Of course, not anymore, but for a while. But the point is that hunger no longer became an issue. So our awareness sessions were not that difficult anymore. Trying to explain to people that people are hungry.
People called us.
Yes.
They had heard of HungerMitao. They knew we were somehow associated with the food banks, but they were on the sidelines. And suddenly these visuals are invading their living rooms. And they're like, man, this is too much. How can I help? So we started receiving those calls.
Right. We do two major food drives every year as HungerMitao. One is in spring, in the month of March, and one is in August. And the one in spring, which is when COVID broke loose last year, we pivoted and we said, okay, we cannot do physical food drive, collecting food and taking it to the food bank. So we said, how about we do funds for food drive? And we created pages for people who wanted to, make their own donation plus share the link with others to donate. And you won't believe it, the year before in 2019, we may have raised $50,000, which was also very good just from the Indian American community. This 2020, we raised $250,000.
Just in North Texas.
Just in North Texas, just in 3 months, So we saw the generosity, as Anna mentioned, people reached out to us asking, how can we help? And there were few people who reached out multiple times. It was like, I want to give, they were not sure how much to give, so they gave little, right? But then they saw more visuals, they heard more about it, they came back and said, hey, I want to go more. So we said, please, whatever you're comfortable.
Yeah, the generosity really kind of stunned us. It was the only gratifying thing in this COVID environment to just feel that, humanity is still here and we possibly can go through anything and be okay.
Right. Yeah. If I were to just add and maybe kind of give my thought of looking down the road, what concerns us is donor exhaustion. Because that is our biggest concern, because those who are well-to-do and those who are philanthropic and have millions of dollars, that's fine, that's great. They may be able to pace it out and give it over time. But the working class people who have stepped up to help their brothers and sisters in need, they are struggling. Many of them are suddenly finding themselves in unemployment line.
And in the US, what we also found was unemployment is not the only reason why people go and need food assistance.
Yeah.
There are families that have both people working, they just don't make enough. Right. We don't have a living wage.
What is the term for that? Under.
They don't have a living wage and they are underemployed. Right? And we've all read the articles where most of America, if they had a $400 emergency, don't have savings to cover it.
Yeah.
Right.
So a car repair, a health issue derails a family's budget. Right? So it's not just that, if employment numbers improve, this will go away. This is a systemic issue that needs to be paid attention to. There's a lot of focus at every food bank. There is a department that keeps working with legislators to ensure that these issues are taken into consideration. Because as the CEO of Feeding America says, food banks cannot do this all by themselves. Yeah. And they should not. Right? There is a shared responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do think how you guys are doing it, like with the resources that you're providing on your website, make it helpful to not have the exhaustion from donating, because you aren't a new organization. So people, because people sometimes have to choose between where to put their money. So the fact that you guys have so many things available and volunteering and all that does probably help with that a little bit.
Yeah, we hope so. But this is a concern that the Feeding America network has. Yeah. Because the recovery, as you all know and you've read, is going to take us years.
Right.
And this need, hunger comes 3 times a day.
Yeah.
So this need will last for a while, and we just have to find it in our hearts and figure out ways to help.
Yeah. Let me share some good news also with you all that, we mentioned earlier that our model of HungerMitao, of engaging the community, what was the term? Community engagement? There's a new term that's floating out there, and that term picked up. We've been doing this for 4 years. Somebody has labeled it now, but I'll share that with you later. But our model was always, first we wanted to scale this across the country by engaging wherever there is concentration of the Indian community members. So we were successful in doing that, right? As I mentioned, the 5 food banks, other food banks like Fort Worth, Tarrant area county, Austin, Detroit, the Bay Area. There are food banks who are shown interest and want to launch HungerMitao there. So that has worked very well. We also, as we mentioned, wanted to scale this across to other communities. And the good news is that the Chinese American community reached out to us and they said that, hey, we want to engage the Chinese community in America in the fight against hunger. Maybe have your model. We said, it's all yours. How can we help? And we started working with them. We shared all our templates, all our processes, all our strategies. We have a sponsorship model where people can make multi-year commitment to a food bank. We shared all of that with them. They took it. They said, I'm going to take it. I'm going to cut. I said, you know what? Plagiarize the heck out of it. This is yours. Because we want the community to be able to use it quickly.
And it was intended for that.
It was intended for that.
The wording, everything was thought through with the larger model in mind. So, what works for the Indian community, except for taking out references of India and inserting China there, should work for their community as well, because they are an immigrant community.
Right. So we now have a Chinese American community-driven HungerMitao movement launched in North Texas. It's called Ni Hao.
Cool.
And they use the exact same tagline, and they have leveraged our model, everything, and we are excited. And in July, we are going to actually have a joint volunteering session with Ni Hao and HungerMitao North Texas together, volunteering at the food bank.
Wow, that's cool. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we are basically out of time, but thank you so much for joining us. This was amazing.
Yeah.
We learned so much. I was inspired, and definitely I'm going to look into donating and seeing how I can engage with HungerMitao. And to all our listeners, you can engage with HungerMitao with at www.hungermitao.org. And did you have something?
I was just going to ask them if they had any thoughts that they wanted to share before we wrap up.
Yes, for sure.
Did you guys have anything else that you wanted to touch on before we do our closing stuff?
No, I really am grateful for this opportunity. Thank you. We are excited to bring this word to you. So hopefully it will reach a lot more people. And this is a need, guys. I mean, hunger is a need. Please get engaged in any way you can.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I would like to add that HungerMitao is not a Raj and first of all, it's not an organization, and it is not a Raj and Anna organization, right? It is a community-driven movement.
Right.
So we need you, right? We want ideas. We want people's engagement. It doesn't have to be money all the time, right? We need leadership because we are running out of bandwidth, right? There are 200 food banks out there. I mean, I am dropping the ball between 5 food banks with which we are communicating and planning the next campaign with. So the more people that get involved, right? You don't need to give up your full daytime job. So you can get involved. Secondly, if there are people of other communities, I shared with you about the Chinese community. If you are represented as a listener to your podcast, if you are from the Vietnamese community, if you are from the Korean community, if you are from the LGBTQ community, any group of people that call themselves community and want to engage them in the fight against hunger, connect with us. We'll share the whole model with you. And then you can replicate it, right? And you can be the rock stars.
Yeah, absolutely. That's smart, like having the community to network, like, because then you can like focus your marketing and stuff. That's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. So if you would like to connect with HungerMitao, you can find them on Facebook. We'll have all the links in the description. And I hope you really do check it out. This sounds like an amazing opportunity. And
we'll tag their Instagram account. They did say they had an Instagram account that they don't use very much, but we'll go ahead and tag them for that.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. This was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Really appreciate that. This has been a wonderful opportunity, and we look forward to hearing it.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.